You may have watched the Winter Olympics this past week from Italy and seen moments that look like pure victory, strength, and celebration on the ice. Before Alysa Liu ever stood on the Olympic podium, she had already lived a lifetime of expectations. A true prodigy with national titles as a young teen, world medals before adulthood, and an Olympic appearance at 16. As a longtime dance team coach, I recognized that kind of talent immediately. The rare athlete who rises quickly and learns early what it means to perform at a high level. And as a parent of 3 athletes, I recognize the quieter part of that story too. After Beijing, Alysa stepped away, not because she couldn't skate, but because she wanted her life to belong to her. She rested, lived, and chose. And when she returned, it was on her terms, her music, her pace, her joy. When she went on to win again, world titles and Olympic gold, what stood out wasn't just the performance, it was the freedom. And that's where today's conversation begins. In this episode, I'm sharing 2 perspectives, as a coach and as a mom, offering reflections shaped by years of experience and the lessons stories like Alysa Liu's quietly bring to the surface. Here we go.
Hey, Steffi K, got something to say. Talk that listens, clears the way. Truth on the mic, grounded in change. You sticking with that? Oh yeah, we sticking with that. Laugh it out, talk it through, we ain't looking back.
Some chats ain't easy, but we take it slow. Tough stuff tackle now, watch us glow.
Sticking with it. Yeah, we sticking with that.
Before we go any further, I want to pause for just a second. Last week, we talked about the focus compass, that simple idea of giving the brain something else to focus on when everything feels loud. I'm curious if you tried it, or if it crossed your mind this week when things felt a little overwhelming. Just hold that thought as we move into today's conversation. Let me start off by sharing some thoughts from a parenting perspective. All 3 of our children were in sports: basketball, volleyball, baseball. I know all 3 started basketball at the age of 4, and I believe baseball for the boys would have been at 4, and then our daughter also did volleyball. I know as a parent, things got crazy, and I remember specifically 3rd grade for our oldest. He was on 3 different teams for basketball in 3rd grade. He was on the school team that everybody participates in. Then there was kind of a regular travel team and then an elite travel team, and he was on all 3. And at one point, we looked at each other and said, what are we doing here? This is nuts. But you did feel as a parent some pressure that if your kid didn't do that, that they would fall behind. And consequently, in our situation with both of our children, they were starters in their sports at the Class A level in the state of Nebraska. But by the time they graduated, neither had an interest in playing college ball. They were burnt out. They needed a break. And that's just regular everyday kids. You get to Alyssa's situation where she was obviously being trained in a much bigger way. You can see why she would need to step away from that. I think many of us put our kids in sports because it teaches them about life, right? They learn to work closely with other personalities. They learn to work hard. They learn what happens if you don't work hard. They develop bonds and friendships that can last forever. And as we know, life can be tough out there. And through sports, any sport, you learn resilience. You learn how to bounce back. You learn how to work together as a team, that it's not just about you. There's so many life lessons, which is why sports are so popular. As you put in the time and money for parents, you see your kid excel and you see your kid grow. And as long as they love it, you hope they continue. Some kids try things for one season and they decide it isn't for them. There's something to be said for sticking it out. I know our daughter had a coaching situation in high school where she wanted to quit and we would not let her. And now she's thankful, very thankful that we did. We just instilled in our kids, you finish what you start, you figure out what can you learn from this that will help you later. But you also got to remember that their brains aren't fully developed at that young age either. And so sometimes that's when you need to make a judgment call and do what's best for your child in the long run. Now that my kids are in their 20s, I will easily say those are some of the very best memories ever. Traveling with the same people for years, you share the big wins, you share the big losses, you share it all. And that's stuff that, although we were very fortunate to provide our children the ability to do that, those are the things you can't put a price tag on, those memories. Now, to cover a little bit from a coaching standpoint, you work hard and you train all season, not necessarily to be the best, but to be the best that you can be. And if you also win, then that's a bonus. But coming from someone who's been a very successful coach over the years, you have to know you can win and believe you can win in order to make it so. In Alyssa's case, she trained extensively as a child. It's been said in one report that I saw that her dad spent almost $1 million preparing her. And because of that, she was able to take 2 years off and still jump back in and be very successful. Not every athlete has those same opportunities. At the end of the day, as a parent, we want our kids to be successful. We want them to excel at life. And through participating in activities in our youth, we gain the skills and the strength, the endurance, the perseverance, the sheer grit that it takes to withstand the punches life throws at us later. And you typically have no idea, as an athlete at the time, there's no way you could know what effect participating is going to have on your life until you're able to look back. And I think it's important to take time to reflect from time to time. Maya Angelou has a quote that is similar to this. How do we know where we're going if we don't know from where we came? I had the privilege of teaching and coaching competitive team dance for 22 years. That included coaching the cheerleaders with the Vienna Rangers football organization in Austria for a season. I coached a college team in Minnesota for a season, 3 years of high school in Minnesota, 7 years, give or take, in Nebraska. My studio was part of a Minnesota-based franchise, one I'd been connected to since I was a student growing up. Dance team changed my entire life for the better, and I always wanted to give that experience to as many kids as I could. I started the first Nebraska program and grew it from 0 to 400, give or take, and then we relocated to Sioux City, Iowa. So I started one there and grew that from 0 to 200. And then we ended up getting relocated back to Nebraska, where my program had shrunk in numbers. And so I grew that back up to 500. I remember sitting down one day and thinking, how many kids have I actually coached? When I did the math across 22 years in 3 states, it was around 1,700 students, give or take. The company motto of the franchise is doing your best is more important than being the best. And we did live by that. However, as any competitive athlete will tell you, the feeling of first place just hits different. When you put everything you've got into something and it pays off in the end, at times can be indescribable. Anyone who's taught knows that some years just hit different. Maybe it's a team that came together against all odds, or the team that just flowed and everything just hit perfectly all season. Some definitely stand out more than others. It's all special, regardless. My teams ranged anywhere from 6 to 46, and at the end of each season, I hope they came away stronger, more resilient, and ready to laugh in the face of any obstacles that come their way. One sticking story I have is a year my studio team did a routine to I Need a Hero, and they wore superhero costumes, masks, and they had these spandex shoe covers that went up their calf, so it looked like they were wearing, like superhero boots, I guess. Well, we competed all year, and were successful throughout, and we get to the final competition, which at that time we called Rochester. It's now retitled Nationals. They had a regular competition in the morning, and were entered in a showcase later. And in the competition in the morning, despite the prior success, the floor had some kind of coating on it. Shoe coverings caused people to fall and slip. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. I then had to rally everybody and motivate everyone. We had about 20, probably 23 that year, to compete in this big best of the best showcase an hour later, after completely fumbling on every level. We made the decision to take the boot coverings off, or the shoe coverings off, and went out there, and I had a former dancer come up and ask if I had a different team in the back, because there's no way that that team was the one that they had just seen an hour before. But it was, which that year stands out as one of the greatest comebacks ever. I don't remember what place they got. Feels like 5th, probably out of 30 teams or so. But I will agree with Alysa Liu in that doesn't even matter. What matters is how everyone pulled together, dug deep, and somehow managed to give an outstanding performance. I always thought we should have made a Hallmark movie out of that. Many dancers have gone on to teach themselves in some capacity, and for me, seeing them give back really speaks volumes. As a coach, you hope they leave with more than skills, that they carry perseverance, grit, and values into their lives, and that those lessons show up for them when life gets hard. As I was building my studio, I would hear things like, well, how are you going to make it? There's, 7 other studios in town, or how are you going to make it? You're not from here. And all I ever thought was, I guess it never occurred to me that I couldn't. When you want something bad enough, you'll do whatever it takes. And when your heart is in the right place and the passion is there, there's nothing that can stop you. One of my favorite things has always been building something from nothing. Taking a group of individuals with different backgrounds, experiences, and mindsets, and helping them learn how to work together toward something meaningful. Watching a team grow over a season and finish proud of what they built was always the real win for me. Because when you learn how to build with intention, trust the process, and stay steady through challenges, you don't just create success. You gain the freedom to move through life stronger, more confident, and unafraid of what comes next. And that brings us back to our regular rhythm here on You Stickin' With That? New episodes drop every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you're subscribed and listening along with us each week. For our Steffi K thought of the day, if you can learn how to build something from nothing, a team, a habit, or even a new way of thinking, you'll never be stuck where you are. Growth creates freedom, and freedom begins the moment you choose to keep going. I'm Steffi K, and I am sticking with that. We'll see you next week.